Learning a block Gemara. We are up to the future Ches Amid Aleph by the Mishnah. So we're talking about finding different documents and who do you return it to. So previously we were talking about documents to do with financial documents. Now the Gemara continues as well. But the Gemara, actually, we're not up to Ches Amid Aleph. We're up to Ches Amid Aleph. Yesterday was Ches. We're up to Ches Amid Aleph, and we talked about if you found the get of a woman or the liberation of an Eved, or you found a star that a shchimer, a person who's dying, writes out, or a paper that we write down what he said, because whatever he says we have to carry out, or a gift, or a receipt. In all of these cases, the Mishnah said you don't return it because we say perhaps the person changed his mind. So each one of them, we need to understand, what is the issue if they all agree that it belongs to the I guess the person who's collecting. He found a document that was emancipated and evident in the street. When the master agrees that this was a star shikha for the Eved, you give it to the Eved and set him free. But the master says, "Hey, I never gave it to him. I wrote it, but I never gave it to him." You don't give back to anybody because obviously the Eved says I'm free, and the Rab says you're not. Now, but clearly says once the master is made, you give it back to the Eved. Now, sometimes there are repercussions that we need to be worried about, maybe that are not correct, and we're going to be doing an injustice to a third party. And how is that? Why do you return it even everyone admits it? There's a problem. The fact that we find it on the floor always tells us there might be some issue here, that people didn't treat it so well because they knew there was something wrong with it. There's a flaw. What was the flaw with this? What's a possible flaw? Why are you worried? Maybe he wrote this document to set free his evidence on this. Well, not Tisha, but he gave it to him a Tisha. Now, in the interim period, whatever the Eved did, as long as he's an Eved, goes straight to the master. He bought a property, it became the master's. Then the master turns around and sells it. It's a valid sale. But then when the Eved is set free 6 months later, he'll walk around to all these buyers. Hey, I bought these properties. I was already a free man, and the master who sold you had no right to sell to you. Give it back to me. Why aren't we worried about these repercussions? He went and bought property from this little tissue. And he belonged to the master. The master went and sold it to him up and the cost of this. And later on, he'll produce this bill of divorce that shows the business. Like it didn't, and he'll go to all the buyers and incorrectly take back their properties. So we had a machlekes in the Gemara whether it was a good thing for an Eved to be set free or a bad thing. A good thing for Eved after then a good thing to be free because now he's free. What else is there? And Rashi said over here because he can now marry a bas chayrin. And the other thing is a bad thing because if he was an Eved of a kohen, he was able to eat truma. And if he had to buy it himself, it was very cheap. And if he was allowed to marry a shivcha. Now he can no longer marry a shivcha. If you say it's a good thing for him to go free, and if you follow up by it says, so you wrote the star, it's already an activated star, and later when it happens, it's retrospective. So then Hitaka was free for the month of Nisan when it was written, and therefore he had the right to collect it back. It's not fair on the people who bought it, so they'll have to renegotiate with the seller and get the money back. But the Eved has a right to collect it back. So nothing goes wrong here. But it also says bashing, which means that the star is written, the Eved is not set free, even if you hold that the agent's activated. But it doesn't work on his back with his battery. So the Eved, the star was not effective until he received it. So why are you worried if you give it back to the Eved, he will collect all these properties that were sold from this little tissue? Because when he will come to collect Amarino, they will say to him, I see where the witnesses bring proof that when you received it, not when it was written, we won't know when it was received, and therefore nothing's going to go wrong. Daitike, and then there's a matana. What's the difference of daitike or a matana? What's the meaning of the word daitike? What is it? It's a person who is passing away, and we want that everything he says, we don't in any way exacerbate the situations. He has to know, be confident that we will all carry out his instructions. And that's daitike. And therefore, She'im Mace, he says that if I pass away, the chassav l'ploin, I want my assets to go to that person. What's a matana? That's similar because you're drawing a contrast. What's a matana similar also that takes effect after? If he gives a matana, it should not take effect till after he passes away. He doesn't. But when he passes away, it's no longer his to give away, and now he's not giving it away. So what's a matana similar to a daitike? Kol shekosabay. If he writes mahayim ul achamisa, should take effect today and take effect after he passes away. Which is the way some of the Rishonim learn, many Rishonim learn, it means, okay, you own the property now, but I have a life tenancy on this property. This person is giving it away. I can live on this property. I have the payers until he passes on, and then you can take over. And all of them, of course, have a hard time understanding how you can find a case of Matana similar to Daitike. Because Daitike doesn't work the way. Daitike, you say that when he passes away, he goes completely over to that person. But right now, it still belongs to the other person. He always change his mind. It still belongs to the sick person. But where do you find a case of Matana that it belongs? It belongs completely to me, and only after, afterwards. Alma, we see the Mahayim Alachamisa who the Koni. So we see, because the Mishnah is drawing a contrast from Matana and making it similar to Shchimara, that if he says Mahayim Alachamisa, so the property belongs to you, and I have the right to the paytas. And therefore, once the property is yours, I can no longer change my mind. By Matana, I can no longer change my mind and give it to somebody else because I already gave it to you completely. And it's like this. He can always change his mind. Till it'll happen. Because he said it only happens till.
What's the din that we're talking about here with matana?
The Mishnah mentioned daitiki matana. If you find it in the street, you don't give it back because maybe he changed his mind. So we're looking for a case of daitiki which is similar to matana, or matana similar to daitiki. So we said matana in the case of hayom alachamisa, so it doesn't take effect until after the person dies, which is like a shchimera, so a shchimera. And on the other hand, it doesn't work. It doesn't work if you do that because when he dies, it's no longer his to give away. His children took over, own it now.
Transferred from when he was alive.
So that's they add the word Mahayim. So you say Mahayim Lachmisa. But Mahayim Lachmisa is not that retrospective release from today. Because by Shchimera also that's not how it works.
Have to pay the taxes on the land from that day.
Yeah, if it's retrospective, yeah, if it's retrospective. But the Shchimera, that's a problem as well. The Shchimera, when he passes away, you give it to that person that he instructed you. It's not retrospective. It's from that day onwards. That's the Savosh Shchimera. So he's saying, I'm made to that person. So again, we're finding it very difficult, but that's a shame to find a case of Matana should replicate Daitike. And each one tries to give his own explanation, but they're all very tenuous. Anyway, so what does it mean? He said, Hayim, I keep the payers, but you keep the body, and I can no longer change my mind. I cannot give it to anybody else. It said only then Ulkani be loy. And if it's not a Matana similar to Daitike, he's not Kona. So if you know, if he gave him the entire property now, everything, paid us as well as the karka, then the person is not kani. Surely is kani. You have a stronger relationship to the property, the beneficiary of your matam. Body. This is what. Where is a case of body which is similar to shchimera? The lekoni lacham is only effective after misa. Kosher kosav amayim lachamisa. Okay, that's what we were saying before. That has to be similar. The Mishnah is talking about the case that Abai says that the Shchimera and the Matana are very similar to each other, and that is by Matana, and the way Rashi learns that the goof belongs to you, but the pay belongs to me. So it's not exactly the same, but I guess it's maybe the Rashi just close enough. Talking about the time, the Lamatun says in our Mishnah, even though in our Mishnah it says that we don't give it back to anybody, it could maybe change his mind. In other words, it sounds like the husband's not around, the man is not around, so we can't ask him. Otherwise, he would have been made and either been made or disagreed. It doesn't say anything about the man, which means he's not around. So we don't give it back because maybe he changed his mind. So it says more of the time. No, he didn't say give it back. Say give it back. Listen, yeah, would have give it back. But I have a question. That is, Motza daitikois apoitikois. It says, but I say you found the daitiki, you found the apoitikois, which is Rosh we say the loan is going to come, or you say from this particular property, and it's talking about a milva al peh. He said, Rashi literally talking about an old loan, and he gave him a new contract. Said, you could collect from this property when you want to. Umatanas, Apapisha's name Moidin, even if the Moidin Layach, Our Mishnah seems to say that if the man would have been there, and he says, yes, give it, we would have given it back. It's only because there's nobody around, so we suspect he changed his mind. The Braisa says, even if he admits it, we don't give it back. What's going on here? Not a problem. If it's a matnas bori, matnas in a shchibra it says the kotzer, roi ba'arse, the man who was lying sick there in his bed. By a matnas body, it doesn't say that expression. So, no, by regular matana. And what's the difference? Masnisin, our Mishnah seems to learn the doesn't really say it, but we infer. If the man was here and he says, yes, give the daitiki to that person, the matani would give when not worrying more that he changed his mind, is talking about the shchimera, the bar mehedru. He could change his mind. He could change his mind anyway. In other words, whatever chash you have, nothing can go wrong. And Explorer explains. Damrin will say, Mike, man, what are you worried about? What are we worried about that we say don't give back by matana, even they both say it's that person's? What are we worried about? I'll explain to you. We're worried as follows. Dilma Kosumi Korelahai. You wrote the star for Reuven. Right? The first star you wrote for Reuven. The person who's dying wrote a star for Reuven. Then the Imlich, he changed his mind and said, you know what, I don't want to give it to Reuven. I'd rather give it to Shimon, better friend. He didn't give him the document. The very same property, he wrote it for another person. The Yovanel gave it to him. Okay? So Shimon now has a later date on his star. It has to come about the Bemahu, the Yovanel. And now we're worried about what? That now he changed. No, the original one already changed his mind. Now we're worried that he's changed his mind on a second person. So even matnas body yavle, if the first person received it as a matnas body, can he change it? Once he gave it to Reuven, can he change his mind? Well, no. We'll look at the date. The first date is a genuine star. Second date meaningless because he sold him he gave him a star that a property they already gave by somebody else. He can't change his mind. He's even matnas body yavle less like say. There's no loss that can come out of it. Why not? The Nafke, look at this. He wrote to give it to Reuven, sorry, but he never gave it to Reuven. He wrote to give it to Reuven, he never gave it to Reuven. So Reuven never was kind. Sorry, let's get it straight. He wrote it to Reuven, but he never gave it to Reuven. So Reuven never kind. He then wrote it and gave it to Shimon. And then he had misgivings. His initial thought might have been better, I should give it back to Reuven. Right? That's what we're worried about. We're worried that now we're worried that this star that we found on the floor, he changed his mind about. But when it comes to Matman's body, who's the one who really owns it? The second star, not the first star, right? So even Matman's body, let's say we're not worried. Why? The Chinavke Tate Basraisa Zochi, it will see a later date. If we see a later date, sorry, by a Matman's body, we see a later date, it's going to tell us it'll tell us that he must have given it a second guy and he changed his mind, and therefore the first one he never gave. And even now he wants to change his mind. It's too late. We'll give it to the second guy. Because clearly it shows he changed his mind from the first one. So what are we worried about? But even if it's from matnas chibra, nami yavanele. But we don't know what happened. How did he give it to the guy? If he gave it to the guy as a matnas body, he can't change his mind. Even matnas chibra navi yavanele. If he gave it to him as a matnas chibra, he's again less b'pseda. There's no pseda. Why? Even if let's say he gave it to him, and if it was a matnas chibra, he could always change his mind. The second guy would be Zoche, the Kahad, the Bemekamaisa. He changed his mind. He's allowed to change his mind from the first one. But Braisa, on the other hand, that's the Mishnah. What we learn in the Braisa, so the star that you found was a matnas chibra. And because the star you found was a matnas chibra, is memanashach. If the other guy you gave was a matnas body, and the first guy you have so you change your mind. You give it to the second guy. And if the second guy was a matnas chibra, it doesn't matter anyway, because the first, even though it's a later date, because you can change your mind. The first star, even if it's genuine, everything else, you could always change your mind. So therefore, we look at the later date. By matnas chibra, I always look at the second star, not the first star. You follow? Because you can always change your mind, even though everything was true, but I have told him the person's alive, he can change his mind. So therefore, there's no problem giving it. There's no problem giving it back.
So give over the star.
Even if whatever the latest, nothing can go wrong by giving it back. Nothing can go wrong by giving it back. Because look at the later date. Let's say you found it, and this is the earlier date, and then whatever. There's nothing wrong with it because we look at the star which have the later date.
But once he's given it, I'm saying if he's already given the star to
It means nothing. You can change his mind until as long as he's alive. That's the point. If the star that we found lying on the street was a matan shchimera, we can. If he says true, we have nothing to lose, even if he's lying. And so it doesn't matter when after he dies and they come to us in the business, two people with two starters coming, each one says, "I got it from the person that died." We look at the later date because his original star was a shchimera, and the shchimera can always change his mind. However, the Brisa says we don't give it back. It's talking about the body, that the star that they found was a matnas body, and therefore that is the final star. You can't change your mind anymore. So now we need to know the la bamedu. You can no longer change your mind. The amrina dilma kosa. So we say here you can't give it back because maybe that he taka wrote to this guy first. It's an earlier date. But he changed his mind. He never gave it to him. And then he wrote. Then a month later, he decided, no, I'm going to give it to somebody else. And now, now he's changing his mind with the second guy. He wants to give back. He wants the first guy to get it, so he's going to produce that star that changed his mind. I'm going to give back, and it has an earlier date. So when they come to Bezin later, who are we going to give the property to? It's an earlier date because it's Matnas Bari. But really, maybe he changed his mind, and now he's changed his mind again. But it's too late now. The second guy can no longer turn his mind. I gave him Matnas body. Therefore, I'm going to say that I gave it to the first guy. Since when the first guy will produce in the best, they can have a quarrel. They're going to argue who's the rightful owner. When he'll produce a star, the Kadim has an earlier date. It's a Matnas body. He gets first. We say, what do we say to this person? You're saying that you're moided that belongs in the case where it's a Matnas body, what we found. You're saying that you actually only gave it to him. You only gave it to this guy here. So I'll tell you what. Write him a star right now, since you gave it to you claim you gave it to nobody else. No problem. Write a star as of today. It belongs to him. So this way, if you tell the truth, then it's his. But if you're lying, then the other guy's date will be first. No, well, you're lying. You're saying you never gave it to anybody else. Anan, we're not going to give him the star. Maybe you wrote somebody else, but maybe you wrote your star to this guy here, but you never gave it to him. And instead, you gave it to another person in between. Because exactly what's happening now, maybe you change his mind. And if you didn't give it to anybody else, you tell us the truth. Because you want to give it to this guy. Write a new star. The Yavanel, give it to him. And if you did give it to somebody else, let them say that guy won't lose out because his date will be earlier. The Kodim Zachi. Fascinating that the Gemara spelled it out. It's like Rashi. This is like Rashi. Sounds more like when Ritva will come up and say this is the written about Tzroi. Okay. Anyway, so the Gemara says masculine. So that's a chilik. If what you found was a star body that can no longer change his mind, then we are worried that it's a ruse to get it back to the original guy that he wants to give it to. But if it's a matnas shchimera, it's always a later date that we look at because he can always change his mind. Nothing can go wrong. We can give it back to him because if he gave it to another person, that other person is going to have a star with a later date on it, and we will give that other person the star, not to the first person. That's a question. Both of them daita kois katani. Both of them it says daita kois, which sounds like it's exact same case. We're talking about daita. We're talking about a star shchimera. You're telling me one is shchimera and one is bori. In both cases, we're talking about. It says in the Mishnah daita, which is a shchimera. In both cases, we're talking about shchimera. Elam Rabzvid. How about shchimera? The Mishnah and the Brisa about shchimera. So how come our Mishnah say that if he says yes, it's true that belongs to this guy, we'll give it, and the Brisa says no. This is as follows: him or his son who gave it to the second person. If the son gives the second person, and the son wants to change his mind, the son can't change his mind. So, Maslisi, they come up through the Mishnah says through Yud Noisnim, Bididei. He's the one who actually gave it the father, the Bar Meheder, whom the father can always change his mind. So again, we are not worried anymore. We're not worried in the Mishnah's case, like we said before. Even if he gave it to a second person, that second person is the taka the rightful owner. And we'll always look at the later date. So even if you give you back to the person with the earlier date, who cares? It's the second date that counts. Because the shchimera can always change his mind till the last moment. So then nothing can go awry here. So we'll give it back. The bad I mean, and he can change his mind. Even if we give somebody else, let's say there's no loss, the kamo, basa, zachim. If they go to court, who will end up getting the property? The second guy. The Hadabay Mekami changes his mind. But Kikotani of Braisa, when you know we're talking about the Braisa, Alpha picture name by the Loyaz, you don't get back at all, is the Bray. The second person we're worried about is the Bray. I mean, if we say, Dilma Kosovo, Lahai, we're worried. Maybe the father wrote to the first guy, and he changed his mind. Didn't give it to him. And then the son then afterwards wrote another, the father died. Then the son wrote a shtar. The Yovel gave it to the second person. Now he doesn't want to give it to the second person. I cannot change my mind. I'll say my father gave it to the first person, which means I had no right to give it to the second person. I'm at the Yiddish. The Nesrelay Sabe Venezel, the Nafig Menei. The Huzachi, in this case, if it's the son who gave the Shtar Matana, and it turned out to be that the father already gave it to somebody else while he was alive, who ends up with the property? In this case, the first guy will end up with the property, the one that father gave it to. The Huzachi. And therefore, the niflik bahadeh, and we add even another dimension we didn't mention before, and that is that maybe the son has a deal with the second guy. Look, you're going to lose this property because my father gave it to somebody else. But if you're going to back up my story, everything else, I'll back up your story. That we'll go halves. Here, we say to him, "Anan haik sabala yavina." We're not going to give back this one here. The Dilma Michte Kasavur, maybe your father wrote it, maybe you. We don't know about this other person, right? We'll say, we're worried if we give it back to the first person, you gave it to somebody else in Matana and you changed your mind. Because how did they change your mind? I'm not supposed to again. We're worried. Now, if you're telling us the truth, that you didn't give it to anybody else, that your father gave you the property, then the Zil Ad Hashta, that if there's another person, write them another star, because after the kamo basa kamo zochi. In this case here, the first person will always win. So if you want to give somebody else, write a star of the game. That's what we learned. Motza Shevi found a receipt. Let's say he found a receipt for ksuva. The wife wrote to the husband, "Yes, thank you very much for giving my ksuva. I received my ksuva." This man, she's a mighty yachal. I give it to the husband. Ain't she mighty? The woman says he never gave me the yachal. He's going to give it back to anybody. This man, she's a mighty. Meets me a yachal about the woman is mighty. You give it back the receipt to the husband. But later, why don't you worry? Maybe she wrote the receipt back in Nisan, thinking the husband's about to pay her out. But not Tisha, but the husband actually didn't pay her out until Tishrei. In the meantime, she sold she didn't really receive the money, so she sold the ksuba to somebody taking a risk. Only if she dies, the husband dies and she get her ksuba, and but if then the person will collect all of it. But if she dies or whatever it is, then the guy gets nothing. He pays something. And then the husband will pull out the receipt that already in Nisan he gave her the money. I'm not giving you again, and I'm not giving you again. Let's say divorces his wife. I'm not giving you again because I already paid her in Nisan, even though he never paid her cent. But the course like it did, and therefore everything, all the course, something else that will take. I'll put in anything that she sold. Take them. He sold something that she had no right to sell. Nothing to sell. Amar of Shmaminami we feel here. Isa l'Shmuel. We're going to pass like Shmuel. Because Amar Shmuel said. Somebody sells it. Let's say Reuben owes money to Shimon, and then Shimon sells the contract to Levi, and then Shimon turns around and is Meichel Reuben owes nothing to this person. Same here. Even if the wife sold the property and she didn't get her money till Tishrei, if she turns around and says to her husband, "No, I'm Meichel you here. Keep the receipt. As if I got the money already." No, she's Meichel the husband for paying her. It's a good mechila. So therefore, when I'm worried, even the so therefore, if she sold the ksub in ear, she sold the ksub in ear to somebody else, but then she turned around to the husband as Meichel, and let's say Tishrei says, "Yeah, exactly." So we give received from this, and therefore the husband has every right to collect back from this person who took the money of the ksub and says, "Hey, give it all back to me because I predate you." We're talking about over here. She still has the ksuba in her hand. Now we're no longer worried that what are you worried about? That maybe she sold Toyos Hana. We're not worried. If she says don't give back the receipt, we're not worried because she has a ksuba in her hand, which means she wasn't yet paid, and therefore we're not worried that because she would have sold it, she would pass on the ksuba to this other person. But Rabba says no. Maybe she has two ksubas and she gave one to the lekech, and she duped the husband that she lost it, so the husband wrote her another ksuba, and then now what she's showing us is this other ksuba. The first of all, is take ksuba lechashin. Who cares about the binah? We stand in the world to worry about the ksubas. Number one. But furthermore, shayve bezmanoi tarif. That he said the second thing is that a shayve, even let's say she sold it to so no, we're not worried at all. What are you worried? Maybe he wrote the receipt and listen with Adam and everything else, but she didn't get the money until Tishrei. Even if that's true, as soon as the shayve came to the hand. Right, as soon as the money came to her hand, the Adam kicked in. Remember, Abai holds the Adam as soon as they signed. It's as if it was. That means as if the what do you call it? She already got paid the ksuba out from Nissen. As if she got paid from Nissen. And therefore, whatever she sold was not a valid sale. She had no right to sell between Nissen and Tishrei. You know, she didn't get paid until Tishrei, since she wrote the receipt in Nissen and the Adam signed it, as if she already received the money in Nissen, so she had no right to sell the property. So the husband has every right to take, or give away the property. She has every right to take back those properties. So we are not worried that there's something going wrong over here. It's Adam. So the receipt, even was written in Nissen, it's active from this and retrospectively when she got paid out in Tishrei. We'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow. Mitzvah. Have a good day.